So I'm back in my garage here, boys. Just briefly, I wanted to add a part 2b, 2b because this is only going to be a very brief video to add to part 2. I should have added this at the end, but it was running a wee bit long, so I don't like the videos running too long these days and boring the hell out of people. But what this actual little segment is about is in addition to looking at the running waveform with respect to the current levels and the operating RPM of a DC motor to establish whether it's operating correctly, with respect to the load, the mechanical load which is placed on the motor, or an issue with the motor, the electrical side itself, if you recall that's what we were discussing. Another technique that you can use of a clear indication of an issue with the system on the mechanical side of the motor-driven system, the output of the motor, if you will, right? So what we have here on this first waveform here, boys, is the normal scenario. The DC motor is driving the squirrel cage blower fan. You can see that I've actually applied the power here. As you would expect to see, we have an inrush current reaching a maximum of just over 35 amps. And then as the speed actually starts to ramp up, we have this gradual slope down in the waveform, and then the blower eventually reaches its nominal operating speed around here, drawing around 8 amps here. Does that make some sense, boys? I hope so. So that looks completely normal to me. That's what I would expect to see. So for comparison's sake, let's look at a scenario where the system has actually been unloaded. And here we can see the profile of the inrush current spike looks to me completely different. Keep in mind, boys, the time base on both of these screens was of course the same, otherwise the comparison would be pointless. If you look at the profile as I've actually attached the power supply to the motor, we have the same spike vertically, again as you would expect, although it's lower. It's just under 31 amps. Okay, that's no too much of a difference, so I don't know if that would alarm you too much. But look at the profile of the inrush current. This looks like the Empire State Building to me. It goes straight up and pretty much straight down. This is a sure sign that there's no flywheel effect on the motor. The inertia has been overcome very quickly, and the running speed has been attained very, very quickly. If you think that through, that is synonymous with a scenario of a mechanical disconnect. The motor is not actually driving anything, or at least very, very little with respect to its load. You can see that the running current is 2¼ amps as well. So way lower on the running current. As you can imagine, if it's unloaded, it's not going to be drawing a great deal of current. And again, the point I wanted to focus on was this section right here of the inrush current, boys. You can see there's a vertical spike, which is completely normal. But if we were actually driving something, had to overcome the inertia of the system in order to get up to the nominal running speed, there would be a gentler ramp that would come down at a slower rate. This is dropping like a stone because it's reached its free running speed in no time at all, and it looks like a straight up and nearly straight down, as you can see. So that's it. I wanted to keep this brief. I didn't want to over-explain this, boys, but this is another sure sign that you have potentially a mechanical disconnect from your DC brushed motor system. Nothing to do with the motor, nothing to do with the electrical end of things. In this instance, issue with the output, there doesn't appear to be any load on the motor. Something to keep in mind, boys. Hope that makes some sense. Cheers.